Hi, I'm Marc de Sousa Shields for the Sustainable Century. For one reason or another, a lot of people look forward to the World Economic Forum in Davos every year. And well, there's a lot of reasons for that. And I would love to go too. My reason? Obsessive Autoschadenfreude. Did I say that right? Anyways, it's gazing at my ongoing failure to persuade the folks with the power to improve the state of the world, which is the aim of the World Economic Forum, to actually do so. So would I go there? Oh yeah, in a flash. I would go as fast as a catamaran could take me. No, I'm just joking. No plane shaming right now. I would go as fast as a fully offset flight to Zurich could take me there. But really, why would anybody want to go? Has anything special ever happened at Davos? Especially if it's, as one of my Twitter pals likes to say, it's just a lot of blah, blah, blah. Well, I want to go because, as one BBC writer noted, it's a place you can simply bump into political and business leaders and, well, ask them difficult and awkward questions. Yes, I would do that. I would love to bump into some people, a few of the people that, well, quite frankly, hold the fate of my kids in their hands. Larry Fink of BlackRock, any Exxon executive, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan. And as a Canadian, I fear an errant snowball or hockey-style body check would be inevitably thrown as a way only to relieve my 24/7 climate angst that most of these people are responsible for or could fix. MasterCard is right. Some things are just priceless. Now, some critics simply dismiss this invite-only gabfest as not much more than glorified networking for global elites. And well, honestly, it's kind of hard not to see that point. I think it was Bono who said the Davos crowd is nothing but a bunch of fat cats in the snow. But to be fair to cats, it's not that Davos hasn't accomplished a few things. There was the term disintervention in 1985. That was a good one. It was minted by the Thatcherite crowd, who stood in awe of all things government downsizing, selling of public sector companies, reducing regulations, lowering taxes, some of it which turned out to be good. But within this whole idea of disintervention, were sown the seeds of today's economy, which was perfectly described by Oxfam International just the other day as one where 22 guys own more wealth than 326 million African women. More positively, it was British then PM, Tony Blair, who supported the Kyoto Protocols in 2005. The United States, of course, did not. And this was before Trump, mind you, prompting the ever prescient Tony to say something about a monumental failure to support international unity and our future survival. Then there was the incredible moment that Nelson Mandela shook hands with South African President F.W. de Klerk. And again in 1994, when Israel's Shimon Peres and the Palestine Liberation Organization Yasser Arafat reached a tentative agreement on the Gaza Strip and Jericho settlements. Of course, and not quite so inspiring, was in 2003 when U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell used the Davos stage to say there was clear evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. There wasn't, but America invaded Iraq in less than 2 months anyways. Well, some of my favorite moments were like in 2013 when the Ukrainian activist group Femin pointed out in protest that men, mostly old white men, dominated the world economy to not such amiable outcomes for most. They were right, and still today, less than 25% of the votes at the Davos Gabfest are women. But last year, gotta love last year. Who couldn't love last year when the ever so earnest, forthright, and clever Dutch historian Rutger Bergman shamed the super wealthy by showing them that they're not paying their fair share of taxes. Talk about inequality. Of course, anyone who reads a newspaper, even just casually, knows that the global economy is pretty much busted, blasted, rotten, cracked, falling apart for the most of us and most species. And it's not getting better, even if by conventional measures, like the gross domestic product, it is the GDP. Of course, it's still pretty good for most of the people who go to Davos, and especially those with the all-exclusive, all-access hologram passes. For them, the goal of development seems more like how to wring the very most profit out of screwing the planetary ecology and 9/10 the people on this earth for as long as possible before riding in on a white horse of change with the fixes only they can. It's like wanting to corner the fire extinguisher market whilst setting fire to the world. Yet it's not as if the elites of Davos didn't warn themselves about growing inequality and climate change. As far back as 1973, Italian industrialist Aurelio Pesci, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but anyways, he told us to balance economic goals with environmental concerns, or else. 25 years later, in 1988, Asher Eldman of Plaza Securities gave a blistering speech about how business leaders were not only unethical, but immoral. He was booed long and loud. I desperately want to shake his hands. Was he right or what? Or what about 1989, and mark this in your calendar, 1989, when Nobel Prize for Physics winner Carlo Rubbia said fossil fuels was a threat to life on Earth. Of course, he wanted more nuclear fusion reactors, but that was when solar was about around, what, $1,000 per kilowatt to generate. Anyways, then there's our dear Leo DiCaprio, who told us to standing ovations that we can't let the greed of the coal, oil, and gas industries determine the future of humanity. Yeah, that was in 2016, and big oil listened too. And since they decided to invest a whopping 1.5% of their capital budgets in low carbon fuels, and well over $1 billion lobbying for more extraction. And let's not even get started on big finance, please. They poured billions and billions and billions, over $50 billion into the fossil fuel extraction sector, even after the 2015 climate agreements. Said Greta Thunberg last year, at places like Davos, people like to tell success stories, but their financial success has come with unthinkable price tags. And on climate change, we have to acknowledge we have failed. Speaking of Greta, what do we have to look forward to at Davos this year? Well, a lot of people are hoping for a Greta v. Trump throwdown 2.0. This may or may not happen. If it does, my guess, Trump will blovate and Greta will eviscerate, likely without wasting too much of her time on him either. Oh, well, one thing that is for sure, all eyes are going to be on the environment, not because the World Economic Forum's annual risk survey, top 5 business and geopolitical risks relate to the environment, particularly climate change, but because half of Australia just burned up and the other quarter continues to do so. Another focus and potential fix to inequality and climate woes, however, may emerge around the notion of stakeholder capitalism. This is where a company's purpose is redefined to serve all corporate stakeholders, customers, communities, environment, and not just shareholders. It's a 40-year-old concept that the Business Roundtable invented for themselves, or reinvented rather, for themselves just this last year. The Roundtable, it's a group of 200 or so CEOs from global companies who, to much public fanfare in August, I guess it was last year, embraced stakeholder-led capitalism. Par for the course. In the days immediately after the great big announcement, Johnson & Johnson, a leading Roundtable member, was found complicit by a U.S. court for peddling deadly oxytocin. Still, I think we can look forward to some of what business leaders have to say about stakeholder-focused companies. I particularly am looking forward to Larry Fink from BlackRock, who's really standing on a perch far out there for most investors. And I'm interested to see what he has to say, particularly. Like last week, Mr. Fink announced BlackRock and big finance won't and shouldn't be investing in coal and should be investing in more sustainable companies. Some people see this a bit too late to the party, but nonetheless, Mr. Fink is influential. BlackRock manages like over $7 trillion, and he wants to see a fundamental reshaping of finance, particularly to fix climate change. Now, with luck, we might see what this means at Davos. Well, the record of Davos affecting meaningful systemic change is almost non-existent. The folks who go there, pretty much by definition, have no real interest in radical change or the radical change required to fix inequality and the destruction of our environment. Look, Australia was burning last year at Davos. It's burning this year at Davos. In between, California burned. And now 3 white dudes own more wealth than a whole bunch of billions of people. And this after nearly 50 years of Davos wanting to make the world a better place. We are running out of time. I have hope for Davos. I have hope. My hope is that hope itself overcomes fear. Empathy and a collective instinct for survival overcomes individual and collective greed. And needed new directions overcome the inertia of business as usual. Is this going to happen? Well, we'll see. Tune in Friday for more. I'm Marc de Sousa Shields with the Sustainable Century. Check out sustainablecentury.net where you'll find podcasts and articles and even a few do-it-yourself projects that you can undertake to bring a little bit more sustainability into your world. Thanks for listening. And remember, it's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to all of us to make this a happier and healthier world.